you have done a lot in the community, and you've done it from several different ways.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been a candidate,
Mm-hmm.
you've been an advocate, you've on some issues like environmental, you've been like a deep dive advocate.
Mm-hmm.
You've worked a lot with youth, you've worked a lot with community programs, so you're kind of, I feel like there's a lot of perspectives you've probably picked up along the way. So that's why I am curious, your curve, if you're taking the pulse of democracy, either in Virginia, locally, or the country, do you think we're in trouble? What's your take on kind of where we're headed with democracy?
Wow, democracy. It's funny that every word can have a play on words.
Right.
So I think words are really important. Democracy means different things to different people.
Sure.
I believe that it means that everybody should share their voice. And when I first started sharing my voice, I can't say that I was very articulate. I know I was passionate. And I also am not sure that I was completely informed. But I want people to know that that's not necessarily
Right.
the key. I think particularly on environmental issues, if we really want to hear everybody's voice, then we need to get a perspective. We need to do our research, but we do need to get into the conversation. So I think using your basic logic is the first step to exercising democracy in your community, in your life, in your family. If somebody's not making their bed every day, if they smell because they're not showering, if you see litter on the street, it's a time to start asking questions. And if it bothers you, then it's time to start, voicing your feelings.
I did a series of videos where I would ask people, why do you think it's important to vote?
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of lined up this way. One person said, if you want to change what's going on in your county or your city, you have to vote. And like the next person said, if you want to change what's going on in your neighborhood, you've got to vote. And then like a couple of videos later, somebody said, if you want to change what's going on your street, you got to vote. And then finally someone got to if you want to change what's going on in your house, you have to vote sometimes.
Yes,
because
yes.
all these things matter. But do you think do you think Arlington is a good place? Is it a good spot, or are we hearing enough voices?
Well, I think sometimes you can be a little deceived by the
Yeah.
different groups or organizations that are out there. You think that because a group exists, they've got that covered.
Right.
And so you don't really ask any more questions. And I know that some people come to the area and they don't engage at all. But some people go to a website or a community, I can't even think of the name of the website, where all of the community organizations are listed.
Right.
They go to that site, and if they're interested in the environment, well, there's one choice, and they choose that, and they think they've pretty much got it covered. And I, myself, think that I said earlier, I like to look for where the challenges are,
Right.
and I encourage young people to look where the challenges are and see who are actually trying to address the challenges and how they do that. And so I think Arlington sometimes hides behind what already exists, and then assumes, people who come to the area assumes that those boxes are checked.
Right.
And they're not, because a lot of people are still struggling, and those are issues that vary from transportation to homeownership to education. Those struggles exist, and the organizations that we have in place need to be pushed,
Yes.
or other organizations need to be created.
Right. I think it can be a problem if, I think this is what you're kind of alluding to, if you have a very, on the surface, kind of very active community, like you're saying, you've got these organizations here, you may not bring, if you come in with a contrary view, you may not feel like you've got space to express it, or you may not think it's worth even expressing. I mean, Arlington has a reputation as a very blue county, right? Very democratic.
Right.
But we have really every political perspective is here. We have people that are very conservative, we have people that are to the left of the Democrats. And it can be hard to feel like there's a space for you to speak up.
I don't know, having been a candidate that was a Green, although technically we don't declare parties in school board races, I felt a lot of negativity and a lot of anger. And what was frustrating was that the platform that I had to offer wasn't really examined. It was my party that was examined. And I think there was a lot of fear, and there continues to be. But I see young people trying to break through that, two-party only certain people can speak system. And because people are so busy and so busy with their families, sometimes the people that are most impacted by the decisions aren't there when the debates take place.
And then, or aren't, exactly. I think that's the challenge for any community. Is figuring out how to get ongoing input from more voices and more people speaking up. Do you have any thoughts about specific things Arlington could do differently in terms of the institutions they have? It's hard to imagine what's not there. But.
Well, I really do think that young people need to engage earlier. I mean, if it was possible to reduce the voting age in Arlington, I think that would be fantastic. They are very informed, and they have lots of different experiences to share. And I think the sooner that people learn about each other and their shared experiences, the stronger a community becomes. But by the time they leave high school, and I usually see this with seniors that I work with, they're entrenched in the college thing, and then they're all caught up in the pressures, and they can't engage. So I would like to see high school students, and I'd like to see even middle school students more engaged in civics. And I'd like to have people give them the time to articulate their feelings. We're in an area where everybody's so well spoken, so quick, they know exactly what to say. And for young people, it takes a little time to build that confidence. But once they break through, they've got some great insights, and they have a strong influence on the adults in their lives. Some of them who feel disenfranchised or not engaged, and they can help them show up and explain the importance.
So when the county was, this was a while ago, but the county was renegotiating the cable franchise agreement. It had a series of public meetings, including one where it was specifically people in the public school system, students, teachers, administrators, families, please come to this to share that. And our son was in middle school at the time, and he was the only student who showed up. And I was told, I didn't go, but I was told he had expressed his views and but it's quite a burden. In middle school, and you're speaking basically on behalf of all the students. But I've often encouraged middle school to show up, and perhaps even in a high school, to become members of. We have 40 or so advisory committees that make the county work and and feed their way up into the county board and the school board. Let's get students, give them a presence on that. Because a couple things, it also helps them do some career exploration. Maybe they see they can see something that they might interest them. And even if it doesn't interest them as a career, it gives them a life skill, which is that civic engagement. And if they don't end up living in Arlington, wherever they live, we want them to be active and speaking up.
Absolutely.
And they need to be made. We need in Arlington to do a better job of making those students feel welcome at those committees.
Well, not only that, but they need to listen to them when they get there. I was part of the very first school sustainability committee, which was supposed to have a say in all the different departments. And I recall some very, very articulate and wise young people who had all their facts together, and they were constantly sidelined by the fact that their ideas were just moving too fast. So I think young people are used to quick results, And I think that they have to learn that things take time. But that said, they don't have the same kind of time that a lot of people who are on those committees have to see change happen. I think some of the barriers to entry are their ability to get there. Transportation for those students should be provided. They should get community service hours for showing up. And absolutely, I agree, that builds their network, but in some cases, they should even get paid. And I don't think that you necessarily have to create an internship where a student gets paid for 6 months or a year. You can say, every time you show up, you get $15. And that's an incentive that will bring students that you don't normally see, like your very passionate, articulate son who was encouraged to find his voice. I think you'd see more kids show up and get their opinion out there if you provided those incentives to level the field.
And sometimes a lot of the things that are being discussed in a community like Arlington are very long-term projects, like a new vision for the park system. And so you can sit here in 2025 and lay all that out, and it's not going to be for several years until some of what you envision actually exists. So let's have the people that are going to be living here in 10 years have a voice in
This is a perfect example, transportation. And how young people, we talk about reducing emissions. I mean, we can put mandates on people who are driving cars now, or we can inspire young people to use public transit and make it safe for them to travel on bicycles and provide bicycles whenever possible for them. We can do those things, and then we really don't have as much of a debate because the infrastructure that we are building is protecting these initiatives in the future. So yeah, I definitely agree. They need to have a seat at the table. Particularly, look at how education continues to change. And I think that in that way, Arlington is behind the curve. And by that I mean offering so much technology without the knowledge or the guardrails or the protections around what human development is and how social engineering takes place. We are very, very knowledgeable, but we did not exercise that knowledge when educating our young people with these new technologies. So they're the ones that are going to have the biggest impact and the biggest challenges.
And I also would welcome them to help problem solve. I remember I worked for many years with USAID, a federal agency that has been much in the news lately. And they had they're, in this case it was college students, but they had an exhibit. I thought it was a wonderful use of library space. They basically invited college students to design housing solutions for Civil War or natural disaster situations. Like how do we provide housing quickly for large numbers of people? And the creativity in the design and the materials, and they had houses that could be parachuted in, airdropped. It was just wonderful to see, and I honestly think because they were 18, 19, 20, 21 years old and hadn't been working in the government agency for 20 years and
they had that can-do attitude.
They had that can-do,
yes.
And they had that hadn't seen what was out there so well. I mean, they weren't like, so I think that youth and that fresh perspective.
But I also think that information can be really frustrating. I mean, look at the electric car revolution, they say, that took place back in the 1940s. There was an electric car introduced, and the idea that it was squashed. Here's the thing. I think we need to be more honest with young people. I think that's the key. And so getting into a dialogue with people who have institutional knowledge, organizational knowledge. I think mentorship is really important because we don't all have to agree, but hearing people's genuine experience and listening to how they navigate things, even hearing their frustrations. I think that was something I noticed with a lot of the young people that, especially when we were talking about the styrofoam movement, they would tell the kids, you know, it's not time yet. You know, we'll get to that. Let's start with our city. And they're like, excuse us, we're not going to be juniors forever.
Right.
You know, so they see the solution
Right.
seems very difficult to us because we get into the, you know, weeds. But their solution is very simple, and some of that is just, you know, changing the way that we are consumers, and they can do that. They're the next buying, the largest buying set is the youth we have today, Generation Z.
I know, I can never keep, I always have to, when I see references to generations, I always have to quickly Google, like, oh wait a minute, so what is this? I can't keep up with all this. All right, thank you for all you do in the community, and thank you for all the youth voices that you help lift up.
Yeah, thank you.
I think it makes me more hopeful about democracy.
I'm really glad that democracy is your focus. It's an important topic, and
Yes.
we need to protect it in every iteration of what it is.